Welcome to Empowered AF 2.0. This is Mark Santiago, your host, founder of Empowered Man, Empowered AF 2.0. Today we're going to talk about something very important. Should I get divorced? Should I get divorced? This is something that I hear all the time. Guys will come into my program, guys will come into my group, and they'll say, Mark, I don't know what to do. These are the first three things you need to ask yourself if you're a husband and you're facing this situation. Now, before I get into this, I'm going to tell you, yes, I have filed for divorce personally. I went through a divorce personally. So I know what it's like to be in the situation where you don't know what to do. You're not sure where you should go. You're not even sure who you should ask. Why? Because as men, we don't want to talk about it. So for the fact that you're coming to YouTube or the fact that you're coming to my podcast and you're asking this question, I applaud you. The Gottman Institute is phenomenal when it comes to marriage and relationships. They've created what they call the Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen are these things that if they're present in your relationship, if they're present in your marriage, it's doomed. It is doomed. Number one, gaslighting or defensiveness. This one is probably the most triggering for me personally. When somebody gaslights you, that means that they're basically becoming defensive and they're making it feel like what you're saying is not true. So, for example, if you said to your wife, honey, I feel like this is happening, or are you cheating on me? And she starts asking questions like, why would you ask that? That's crazy. Why would you even think that of me? I can't believe you would assume that of me. That's gaslighting. Okay. Now, if you just watch politics, you'll see a lot of gaslighting. So get an example of what gaslighting looks like. Go watch any of the politicians. You'll see what I'm talking about. The next one is criticism. Criticism is so easily seen, right? Instead of your wife or your partner, maybe having constructive criticism for you where it's like, hey, honey, if you would do this, this would make things feel better. Criticism's like, you always do this, you always do that, you always do this, you always do that. And there's just this heart of criticism that isn't healthy for any relationship. Contempt is the next one. Contempt is where you basically have no regard for the situation. You have no regard for what your husband is doing, or in this case, what your wife is having, right? So if you have contempt for your wife, meaning you don't really care, you don't really care about what she's doing, you don't really care what she's doing or going or whatever, that's contempt. Same for her. If she's like, hey, go date other people, or I don't really care what you do, I don't care if you give me flowers, I don't care if you do any of those things, I'm done, that's contempt. And the final one is stonewalling. Stonewalling is where essentially the emotions are gone and they basically will not give you emotions anymore. They call it a stone wall because it's like you're talking to a stone wall. If you're gaslighting or your wife is gaslighting, if you're being critical or she's being critical, if there's contempt on either side or stonewalling on either side, there is a good chance that your marriage is done. The second thing you need to look at is your heart done? Is your heart done? I remember going through this and coming to a place of wanting to still be in my marriage, but slowly recognizing that my heart was done. I remember standing in front of my attorney for the very first time, and he was asking me these hard questions about, my marriage and what was going on, and I could just feel the death in my heart. And that was where I knew that my heart was done. And looking at my wife and the things that she was trying to do to win me back and to convince me that she could change and all this stuff, my heart was done. So that question you need to ask yourself is your heart done? And then the final piece is there a lack of repentance on either side? Repentance is typically used in a religious context, but I think it can be used in any context where when you look at somebody who's decided to change their mind, repentance is literally a changing of the mind. Is there a lack of changing of mind on either side? If your wife is actively going out and having an affair, if your wife is actively moving out of the house, if your wife is actively doing those things, there is a lack of repentance. And the same for you, if you're actively doing any of those things, if you are actively holding contempt or being gaslighting or stonewalling, if there is a lack of repentance on either side, it may be time for a divorce. Now, at the end of the day, I am not your attorney. I am not your guy who can tell you whether or not you should get a divorce. You have to make that decision for yourself. But hopefully these three things will have gotten you to a place where you understand that there are some questions you need to ask yourself, hard questions, that will get you to the place of making decision, the most empowered decision you can possibly do. Why? Because an empowered man, we believe in empowerment. We don't believe in making disempowered decisions. Here's an example of a disempowered decision. It's where when you ask another man, hey, should I divorce my wife? You asking somebody else to make a decision for you is disempowerment. It's bullshit. What you need to be able to do is put on your own balls, your own armor, put on your own power, and make an empowered decision for yourself. And that is where you say, is it best for me and my family to stay in this marriage, or do we move apart? And it's hard. It's the hardest fucking thing you could ever fucking do. And I say it with the emphasis on the fuck, because that shit hurts. And if you're facing that right now, you are not alone. There's other men that want to come around you and help you as you go through and grow through what you go through. If that's you, I want to see you on the inside. If that's not you, it's cool too. We got plenty of options for you.